All right. And welcome back to the First and Goal podcast. My name is Lewis, and next to me is, of course, my beautiful co-host, Laraib. And we are going to be predicting and previewing another great week of NFL football, week 5 edition of the podcast. After a bumpy road for me last week in the picks, I have come back recharged, re energized, and it's a brain week. I'm going with the brain, not my heart. Agendas will be pushed aside this week.
Wow, really interesting, Lewis. I always go with my brain. I'm always with the analytics. So,
Obviously.
without further ado, let's get into week 5, Lewis. First and foremost, we have the Seattle Seahawks visiting the New Orleans Saints. We will be attending this game,
Yes,
so that will be
sir. Yes,
awesome to
sir.
see. Hopefully we can watch a lot of touchdowns in this game. But Lewis, what are your Saints going to have to do after a 1-3 start to beat this high-powered Seattle offense?
It's a tough spot to be in, after coming back from London. It's kind of like a short week in a sense just because of the travel and everything that goes into it. So, but you can argue, the Seahawks didn't have an easy game last week. They scored a lot, but what did that not mean it was a close game or it was a blowout? It was definitely a close game that they're coming back from. And I think the Saints defense matches up really well with the Seahawks offense. The pass rush is a lot better than what they faced last week. I think being able to stop the run is the biggest strong suit for the Saints defense. So basically, it's can we get pressure on Geno Smith? And right now, the Saints' pressure has not been great so far in the season, but they kind of figured things out against the Vikings last week. So maybe this pass rush can start going, throwing a lot of blitzes at Geno's way. It's in the dome, second game in the dome this season. So I think the pass rush will be viable in this game, or at least just enough to stifle this apparently now electric Seahawks offense.
Yeah, and I think the key that you're pointing out to is going to be that Saints front seven and what type of packages that they bring at Geno Smith. These two teams matched up against each other last season, and that was the key, right? Demario Davis coming on those blitzes and getting in Geno's face late in that game, which causing turnovers, causing picks, and stuff like that. And that was the key for y'all. And I think that's what's going to be the key for Geno. Our two rookie offensive tackles have done a great job. Last week gave up 0 sacks and 150 rushing yards that Rashad Penny had. So that was good to see. But when you're playing against the Saints front seven with Onyemata, Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, all those guys are going to be after Geno Smith all game long. So it's going to be on him to get the ball out really quick and short routes and you really letting the defense come up and then start airing out deep to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And that's going to be the key for the game in the Seahawks in this one, Lewis. And of course, I'm picking my Seahawks to win this game. It's gonna be beautiful being there and witnessing the Seahawks win live.
So I mentioned in a previous episode that if as long as Jameis doesn't have a full week of practice and he still plays, I will not be betting for the Saints if it's been unclear who the quarterback is all week and there's not a quarterback who gets first team reps the whole week. So far, Jameis has missed practice on Wednesday's practice. So if Jameis starts this game, I will be picking the Seahawks. But I don't think he will be starting this game. I think Andy Dalton will be. And all we need in this game is just a consistent offense, a good running game, and just kind of do just enough at home to put the Seahawks away. So I am picking the Saints. But if Jameis is playing, I'll be at this game probably with my hand over my heads or my hands over my head a lot of this game. But I will be going with the Saints 26 to Seahawks 17 in this matchup. And
Wow.
Laura, that will move us on to our next matchup. We have the Green Bay Packers traveling to New York the New York Giants traveling to Green Bay to face the Packers. Packers favored by 8 points. Not much to talk about. I just think I'll start off with this one. This Packers offense, I think it's slowly starting to kind of find a rhythm, even though that Patriots game looked messy last week. The pick six, a lot of mistakes offensively. I saw more from their rookie receivers, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, getting involved in this offense, showing that they can be electric playmakers. I still think this Packers offense is a weapon away on the outside, OBJ, to make them into a legit threat. But against this Giants offense on the other side, there's not going to be much reason to push the ball or put the ball in harm's way for Aaron Rodgers. And this is the perfect Aaron Rodgers beatdown type game. I like the Packers.
Yeah, Lewis. Only thing we can say about this game is going to be in London. So for all you early birds out there,
Mm,
this is going to be one to wake up and watch.
good point.
I know we'll be definitely watching it on the way to the Saints game and before kickoff in that one. But like you're saying, really not much to talk about for the Giants. I know they're 3-1, but they really haven't had to play any teams like the Packers so far. And for Green Bay, it's just going to be getting Aaron Jones involved, getting AJ Dillon involved. Like you're saying, the two rookie wide receivers both got a touchdown, or both one had a receiving touchdown, one had a rushing touchdown. So that was good to see. Typical Aaron Rodgers game. If he wants to get back into the MVP race, this is gonna be one of those games where he goes out there 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. So just like you, I like the Packers in this one, Lewis, 31-17.
Forgive me. I did not realize this game was a London game, but that does not change my pick or my feeling about this game. I do like the Packers. I think it'll be a little more low scoring than that because I think both teams lean heavily on their run game. So this game could be over, by 10:30, and people still have time to get ready for the noon game. So I like the Packers in this one. Give me Packers 21 to Giants 13.
All right, moving on to another 12 o'clock game, Lewis. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers with Kenny Pickett at the helm visiting Buffalo. Bills coming off a great win last week, finally winning a one-score game against the Ravens. And you really liked what you saw out of Josh Allen that game, finally coming down in the last couple of minutes, milking the clock, and getting what they needed to just get the field goal and get out of there with a win. And now they're going up against a Steelers team who really, the defense has looked depleted without TJ Watt out there. Kenny Pickett came in at halftime through 3 interceptions. I know one last minute Hail Mary and couple tip passes. So nothing too bad on him. But I just don't think Kenny Pickett is going to be able to match offensively what the Bills are going to do, Lewis.
So fun fact for Laraib, the Steelers, ever since 1970, when we started tracking lines and spreads for games, Steelers have never been a 14-point underdog since their franchise has been founded, or at least since these numbers have began to get tracked. And I doubt before that they've always been a historically competent team. So this is a strange time for a lot of Steelers fans, but it could be a time of optimism, seeing what Kenny Pickett can do with these weapons. And we said it before with Mitch Trubisky. This offense is way too talented and has too many weapons for it to look this anemic and this lackluster. Now, is this the game that Kenny Pickett figures it out and starts getting this offense humming? I don't think so. I think this Bills pass rush is way too dominant. They're starting to get guys back in the secondary, and we saw how that really frustrated Lamar and the Ravens in the second half of last week's game. So I like the Bills, especially up front, to win this game. But I think you'll see flashes of Kenny Pickett. I like him a lot. I think he pushes the ball down the field. He's a risk taker, and I think he is the temporary answer. I just see a larger sample size to really believe in him. But in this game, he will not be the answer. I like the Bills. Give me the Bills in this one, 32 to Steelers 13.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. It's going to be Bills. Josh Allen's going to go out there, throw a lot of touchdowns, run a lot of touchdowns in. Give me the Bills 33 to 13. One last thing about Kenny Pickett, he definitely loves his boy George Pickens, and he's not afraid to throw that ball deep. So we'll see what type of connection they form, Lewis. Moving on to another game, we have the Los Angeles Chargers going to Cleveland to play the Browns. Los Angeles -2.5 in this one, Lewis. I just want to ask you a quick question. What was it that made you pick the Falcons against the Browns last week?
I feel like for the most part, it was just Falcons at home. I needed to Jacoby Brissett has been playing a little too good for my liking, and I liked a lot of what the Falcons' rushing game was able to do, even with no Myles Garrett, and that's kind of the reasoning I gave. But afterwards, I was thinking about it, and I was like, I don't know, the Browns is really going to beat up that defensive front of the Falcons, and it turned out Jacoby Brissett had his bad game. I made me look like a genius, and one of the few picks I got right last week. But looking at this game specifically, there's a lot of interesting matchups to look at. First off is the Chargers front seven against this Browns rushing attack. I think this is huge advantage Browns. But the thing about this game is I don't think this Browns defense is that great to stifle Justin Herbert. So I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. And if you give me a high-scoring game between Justin Herbert and Jacoby Brissett, I'm going to always lean with the better, more competent quarterback, even on the road. So I like the Chargers in this matchup, but make sure you're looking out for that Browns running game because it is going to be potent this Sunday.
Yeah, and we saw Austin Eckler last week get a lot of receiving work with Justin Herbert. He got 3 touchdowns last week, so I know your fantasy team loved that. And then for the Browns, it was a close game against the Falcons last week, and they just really couldn't get that ground and pound game going that they're used to. But when they're going up against this Chargers front seven, which gave up 75-yard touchdown to Dameon Pierce last week, I think that's going to be, like you're saying, the success for them in this game. But still, I think Justin Herbert's going to pull it out in a close one. And this is going to be one of the more underrated games of the week, in my opinion, Lewis. But I like the Chargers 28-26.
I agree with you here, Laraib. We've been agreeing a little bit too much on this podcast so far, but I like the Chargers. I think it's going to be a little more high scoring than that. I just think both these offenses are going to be firing, but in the end, I'm going to trust Herbert over Brissett. I think just one key mistake from Brissett really puts this game away. So give me the Chargers as 36 to Browns 30. And that will move us on to our next game, where we have the Chicago Bears traveling to Minnesota. Minnesota is favored by a full touchdown at 7 points. This game will be at 12. Big thing for me in this game is just, can we see consistency from this Vikings offense and kind of game managing? Because it's really dependent. I know we make all the Solar Kirk jokes and primetime Kirk, but he really did not look too sharp against the Saints last week. He had a pick in that game, and then in the red zone, they just settled for way too many field goals. I understand the Saints have a good defense, but this offense should be competent enough to convert in a lot of those situations. Thankfully, you play the Bears this week, so if you kick 8 field goals, you're going to win this game by probably 8 field goals. So not much concern for the Vikings, but it is a divisional game, so there is that level of unpredictability about it that can arise. So the Vikings have to be on lookout, but I think overall they shouldn't have too much to worry about in this matchup.
Yeah, when playing against the Bears, arguably one of the worst teams in the NFL, there's not much that you can do, especially Justin Fields. Whenever he's playing against, a front seven like the Vikings, he's not going to really have that good of a chance. And, we've talked about it so much, about his passing stats, about his completions. Matt Eberflus, head coach of the Chicago Bears, looks like his only idea is just to run with Khalil Herbert and Justin Fields. And so this Vikings offense, I think they're going to be able to put up 20 points and this game's over. So give me the Vikings in this one, 28-13.
Yeah, I agree with you. Give me the Vikings in this one. I'm going to go Vikings 27 to Bears 10.
All right, moving on, Lewis. We have another game with the Detroit Lions going to New England to play the Patriots. New England -3 in this one, Lewis. But, I'm kind of leaning towards the other way in the Detroit Lions. I know they're only 1-3, but their offense is averaging 35 points a game, Lewis. And now when you're going up against Bailey Zappi, I think, that 35 points is exactly what they need to beat this New England team. I know they gave Green Bay Packers a couple of fits last week with that defense, but Detroit, I think I like if some of the playmakers come back. Even without DeAndre Swift, I think Jamal Williams had a great outing last week. And so give me Detroit in this one, Lewis. What do you think?
It really depends. And I know Bailey Zappi had a decent game, coming in, didn't really they really restricted him in the playbook and played very conservative, and that just kind of helped them. And they had a lot of breaks from Green Bay. But it looks like Mac Jones might play in this matchup. He's listed as questionable, and he was a limited participant in practice, and he's trying to push to play. So if Mac Jones is playing, it's going to be a very interesting game. In New England, it's just hard for me. This Detroit team, which has looked so impressive offensively, has looked so atrocious defensively, that it's really hard for me to pick them. I mean, I understand they're the darling of a lot of people, and their offense is great, but this is at New England against Bill Belichick, who's had a lot of these guys' numbers, and I just can't see a world in which Dan Campbell wins a coaching matchup against Bill Belichick, who I think he can take away a lot what this Lions offense likes to do. This defense has been solid all season. They had a pick 6 against Aaron Rodgers last week, and I think if they win the turnover battle, which is very likely, Jared Goff going to New England, there's just a lot of matchups that do not favor Detroit in this game. So I agree with a lot of what you said, but I'm going to disagree with the outcome. I think I'm going to throw the caveat away. Regardless of who's quarterback, the Patriots are going to get this game at home. Give me the Patriots 24 to Detroit 23.
Well, Lewis, this is a Jared Goff revenge game after he lost to Bill Belichick in the Super Bowl. So give me Jared Goff in a revenge game.
Matt Patricia revenge game.
I mean, he was doing a whole lot of nothing over there in Detroit. So give me the Lions 27 to 24. But Lewis, moving on to another game that we have, the 2LS Dolphins go to New York to play the Jets. We didn't mention the Jets last week, but they had a sneaky victory against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Our boy Zach Milfson had a 2-minute drill to end the game and go down and score a touchdown and win it for him. And so, coming back from an injury, he came out and got it done against the Steelers. But now he's going against the Dolphins secondary, which we know has a lot of playmakers back there in Xavier Howard, Byron Jones. And so, do you think he can be able to get it done this, Lewis, with Garrett Wilson?
So my thing with this game is you brought up the secondary playmakers. I think the underrated thing for the Jets has been their secondary playmakers. You talk about Sauce Gardner. He's obviously, the number 4 pick, highly touted, highly regarded. But, DJ Reader on the other side is no joke, or DJ Reed, excuse me. He's no joke either. Yeah. And then their safeties have been playing very well. And I think this defense, it's hard to handle Hill and Waddle in any matchup. But I think, home divisional game, this could be a really tough test for Teddy Bridgewater and his first start for the Dolphins. So I'm leaning Jets in this matchup, but prove me wrong.
Yeah, no, I was about to take the Jets in this one. Lewis, on the line is 3.5. The Jets would make a great upset pick. But still, I think, like we mentioned last week, Teddy Bridgewater, he's a serviceable backup, especially with the playmakers that they have and the running backs in Mostert and Edmonds. I think they can get it done. Just talking about the Jets a little bit more, Garrett Wilson, it looked like he's building on connection with Zach Wilson a little bit. And then Breece Hall last week had a really good game. And so the Jets could really win this one. I think it's going to be a really close game. But I think Teddy Bridgewater can get it done in his first start. Give me the Dolphins 27-26.
You know what? I got to stick with my head here. I told you I was sticking with my head, not my heart. My heart wants me to go Jets, but I agree with you. The Dolphins playmakers are just way too elite, and I just don't think Zach Wilson is ready to win this type of game yet. But I also agree it's going to be a very close game. I just think Teddy Bridgewater makes one less mistake. A veteran. He's been in a lot of these type of moments where he's been on the road, getting a tough win out like he did when he was in New Orleans against Seattle 2 years ago. Just random game popped up in my head. But yeah, I think he can get this one done. So give me the Dolphins in this one. I'm going to go 28-27. Late field goal for the Dolphins. Late field goal for the Dolphins wins it. That will be my outcome. But we move on to another divisional matchup. We have the Atlanta Falcons traveling to Tampa. Tampa is an 8.5-point favorite at home. The Falcons have been very frisky this season, Laraib. Just picked up a win against the Browns last week. And you could make an argument that they've been like 2 plays away from being undefeated. There was that late game in Los Angeles in which they came back and it was just got blown up by Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald in the end. And then week 1 against the Saints, they blew a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter. So you can argue that this Falcons team is actually good this season. So 8.5 points is a lot, especially against a divisional opponent. But that divisional opponent happens to be Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. And, after losing that Sunday night game, it's hard for me to see let's just say a motivated Tom Brady this week, who has a lot to play for. And it's hard for me to see, they're getting guys back, getting guys healthy. Chris Godwin was starting to get more integrated in the offense. Mike Evans looked great last week. And I think this is a game where they get Leonard Fournette a lot more involved, get the running game going. And with that, they're going to be unstoppable. And also a big thing to look out for, though, is this Buccaneers run defense, which has been consistently for the last few seasons, ever since they had Tom Brady, even the season before without Tom Brady, they were underrated, has always been a really good run defense unit. But they let up almost 200 yards against the Chiefs on the ground. And this Falcons team with Mariota loves to run the ball. So that's an interesting matchup to look at in this game.
Right, for sure. But Tom Brady coming off for 2 losses in a row, Lewis. I think this one you just got to hand it to the Buccaneers. But, the winner of this game, Lewis, is going to be the leader in the NFC South. So if the Falcons can pull off the upset with Marcus Mariota running the ball, with Tyler Algier running the ball, then, they have a chance. But, with no Cordell Patterson, I think that's going to be a big issue for them. And then Mariota last week, he did well on rushing, but passing through the air, he was just terrible, Lewis. Less than 150 yards passing against the Browns. And I think he's gonna need that arm to keep up with Brady and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and all those guys. So I like the Bucs in this one. I think they're just going to absolutely steamroll them. I think Brady's on a mission now that he has an extra ring finger open for another ring. So Give me the Bucks 31-17.
I didn't want to go there. You went there. I'm just saying. But yeah, I agree with you. This could be a close game, but I think, like you said, rejuvenated Tom Brady. I don't know what his record is coming off of 2 losses, but I feel like it's pretty darn good. So yeah, give me the Bucks in this one. I'm gonna go Tampa. Let's go 34 to Falcons 24. And that will lead us on to our next game. We have the Tennessee Titans traveling to Washington to face the Commanders. Tennessee favored by 2.5 on the road. Laraib, I want to ask you. So Tennessee starting off 0-2. A lot of questions about this offense. Defense wasn't looking too sharp. But after 2 wins in a row, do the Titans still have a playoff caliber team? And can they win this game?
Oh, they definitely do, Lewis. I know I was griping on Derrick Henry the first couple of weeks, but looked like he looks like in the past 2 weeks he's looking like he's gotten back to his old former self. And then Jeffrey Simmons, one of the most underrated defensive linemen in the league, he was just causing havoc, on the Colts offensive line last week. And I think he's going to continue the same success against the Commanders' bad offensive line. And we know what Carson Wentz is like when he has pressure in his face. And so I really like the Titans in this one, Lewis. I know they're on the road. Vegas only has this as a -2.5 game, but I really like the Titans. Their defense has been awesome. They were trampling the Colts last week up until they were trampling the Colts up until last week on a late last second comeback from the Colts. And so give me the Titans this one, Lewis. 28-24.
Yeah, I was just looking. It looks like Chase Young had a big setback in his comeback to get back on the field. It looks like he's probably going to get back around week 7, week 8. This was kind of the game he was supposed to come back, and I think he would have been huge in this game. But I have to agree with you, Laraib. I just think the Titans, up front, match up so well against this Commanders team that this Commanders defense has been pretty poor this season, much to my chagrin. Now, and like you said, their offensive line for the Commanders as well has also performed poorly. Carson Wentz has been on his back all season. So if this is a game Jeffrey Simmons dominates, I will not be surprised. So like you, I like the Titans in this game on the road. Give me the Titans 24, Commanders 21.
Okay, moving on to our last 12 o'clock game, Lewis. We have the Houston Texans playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars are -7 in this one, Lewis. That's kind of surprising. Consider that the Texans defense has been really stout all season long, and all their games have been really, really close. Against the Colts, go into overtime. Against the Broncos, they lose late. Against the Bears, they lose late. And then a really close game against the Chargers last week. And then, you're going against this Jaguars team, which are up big last week against the Eagles, but they just couldn't hold on. And the turnovers from Trevor were just really disappointing to look at. Even a fumble from James Robinson. And so I think this is going to be a closer game than most people imagine, but I still like the Jaguars. It was a really bad weather game for them last week. Balls are wet, they slip out of people's hands. And so maybe we can give Trevor a pass on all those turnovers from last week. But I think he's going to really have to be on target this week against the Texans defense, which has been sneakily good, Lewis.
Yeah, 7 points seems like a lot in this matchup, especially how the Jaguars look. But you can throw a lot of that to the weather and the opponent, which makes sense. But this Jaguars team has been very good this season, and there's little reason to doubt them against the Texans, who've just been, I'd like to say, inconsistent, because I think they've played really good games, but at the same time, they do not have a win. So they've been consistent in not winning games, and I think that continues this week. I think the running game for the Jaguars, which looked very poor, I think that gets back going. James Robinson on the ground, Travis Etienne. I think they get their game back going against this Texans front, which has been underrated, but still has a lot of work to do if they want to get back to a competitive level. So I like the Jaguars in this game. I'm going to go Jaguars 26, Texans 20.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. Jaguars in this one. Please, James Robinson, my fantasy team needs you to have a huge game.
I'm right there with you.
And so give me the Jaguars. 2-touchdown game for James Robinson.
Woo!
Jaguars 28-24.
All right, I'm going to go with this game. The San Francisco 49ers travel to Carolina to face Laraib's favorite coach in Matt Rule. San Francisco is favored by 6.5 in this game. And I have a few things to say. If the 49ers lose this game to Carolina, Kyle Shanahan should be banned from a whole week. He should be suspended by the front office, and he should not be able to enter any team facility. And I'm serious. I don't care who they play. I don't care if they play the Seahawks, Cardinals next week. I don't know who they're playing. I don't care if they play, the 1985 Bears next week. He cannot enter the building because this is such a coaching mismatch. Matt Rule is an awful coach. The 49ers, we saw what they looked like Monday night. They looked efficient. Their defense was getting turnovers, was getting to the quarterback a ton, and there's no reason that should not be the case in this game. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. 49ers 28, Panthers 11.
Yeah, some of the statistics have been coming out for this Panthers team, Lewis, and they're just absolutely putrid. Baker Mayfield is having statistically one of the worst seasons the quarterback in the entire NFL history is having, and so that's just awesome to see. And so, just like you're saying, the 49ers are coming off a short week, and they are traveling to the East Coast, so those are some things to look out for. But still, I like the Niners in this one, just like you. Give me the Niners 26-14. Moving on to probably the game of the week, the most interesting game of the week, and probably in our eyes, Lewis, the Dallas Cowboys visiting the Los Angeles Rams. A lot of controversy around Cooper Rush, the better Cooper.
Cooper Kupp too.
Yeah, but Cooper Rush, the better Cooper. Lewis, who do you like in this game?
I'm taking Cooper in this matchup, and I'm not talking Kupp. Cooper Rush and the Dallas Cowboys have been on a roll. Their team has been getting better and better and better as the weeks go on. And conversely, look at the other side. The Los Angeles Rams have just been getting worse and worse and worse. And I know this game's in LA, but I guarantee you it's going to be 90% Cowboys fans in there. We know they travel well, and we know they love Los Angeles. So big things for me in this game is this Cowboys defensive front going against this Los Angeles offensive line. And I think it's a complete and utter mismatch. We saw the Rams give up 6 sacks, 19 pressures on Monday Night Football to the 49ers, and that their task does not get any easier as Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, and this front seven for the Cowboys comes to town. I don't know, outside of, Trayvon Diggs has been playing outstanding this season at corner. We would mess with him a lot last year because of all the yards given up and how aggressive he was. But he's been playing as aggressive, but still not giving up any of the yards. He's been playing like an all-pro corner this season, and I want to give him credit where credit is due. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the building doing so. But as long as this offense for the Cowboys, and they have their own, big test, I think this Rams defense is no joke when you have Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. But if this Cowboys offense can just get a running game going, Cooper Rush has been very, mistake-free so far. So if he can keep the ball out of harm's way, it's going to be a low-scoring matchup. And I know Dak Prescott's going to be watching and he might be shivering a little bit at times because I think not the best Cooper, but the Rush Cooper will win this game. Give me Cowboys 26 to Rams 20.
Yeah, we know Dak Prescott is rooting for a certain Cooper on Sunday. Definitely not Cooper Rush, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
No, but you look at this Rams team, you think about who their two losses have come from. The Bills and the 49ers, right? And that what's the Bills defining defense? Their front seven. What's the 49ers defense? That front seven. And now you're coming against this Cowboys front seven, was going to wreak havoc on that beaten up and old and bad offensive line for the Rams. And then, there's not, you can rely on Cooper Kupp only so much, right? He can only be your go-to guy for only so much. I know they got Tyler Higbee involved a little bit, but Allen Robinson has been absolutely absent in this offense. They've been throwing to Ben Skoranek more than they've been throwing to Allen Robinson, which is just mind-boggling.
Why do you think that is?
I don't want to say anything. It might be based off the pigment of their skin. But who knows? Okay, who knows? I'm not saying anything about that. Okay, but I like their Cowboys defense in this one. I like Cooper Rush in this one. Give me the Cowboys on the road. It's gonna be a nice, tight, close game, but give me the Cowboys 26-23.
Absolutely. That is going to be one of the best games, just storyline wise, to look at this weekend. And, Cowboys, Rams, Fox is going to eat that game up. But another game that Fox has is the Eagles traveling to Arizona to face the Cardinals. Cardinals, or did you pick the Rams in that last game? I'm sorry. I
went ahead and I took the Cowboys.
You did take the Cowboys.
23. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay. So we have the Eagles traveling to Arizona, the undefeated Eagles who have been looking pretty dominant all season. Even the last game looked kind of close. Once they got a hang of it in the end, there was no chance the Jaguars were coming back from this one. What chance do the Cardinals have in giving the Eagles their first loss of the season?
I think it's very low, Lewis. I think that defense really is just not going to be able to hold up against this Eagles offense. Last week we saw Miles Sanders just go absolutely bananas against the Jaguars front seven. And I think he's going to have the same amount of he's going to have almost the same type of performance against this Cardinals defense, which really hasn't been playing that well. I know their stats look good coming off of playing Baker Mayfield last week, but we saw what Patrick Mahomes did to them. We saw what the Raiders did to them. And so I like this Eagles offense this one. I said last week in the predictions, I'm not ever gonna go against the Eagles until they prove me wrong. And so 4-0 Eagles, I'm hoping they go 5-0. Give me the Eagles in this one, Lewis. And they were down 14-0 last week, and they overcame some adversity, which was good to see.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it's interesting to note about this Cardinals defense. It's hard, like you said, it's hard to gauge exactly how good or how bad they are, because on one hand, they played really bad against the Chiefs, which a lot of defenses play bad against the Chiefs, but they balled out against the Panthers. And well, a lot of defenses ball out against the Panthers. So it's hard to gauge exactly where this team is. But I think this Eagles offense should be considered in the top tier offenses in the NFL. So it's going to give the Cardinals problems. JJ Watt coming back from injury was huge for the Cardinals last week. But I think in this game, just the running game is going to bludgeon that Cardinals front. And then A.J. Brown, expect for him to have another huge game this week. Just that Cardinals secondary has been looking pretty shoddy. So I like the Eagles in this one to go 5-0. And I think, it's looking good. There's not a lot of harder games in this one. And so give me the Eagles this one, 31 to Cardinals 28. It's going to be a close one. I'll say that. Adversity will hit.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Eagles 30-24. But Lewis, moving on to Sunday Night Football, we have the Cincinnati Bengals playing the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore -3 in this one, Lewis. How do you like that line?
I think a lot of this line is you're getting two good teams in division, but it's a home game for the Ravens. I think that's the biggest thing. These two teams sitting at 2-2, we had high expectations for both these teams entering the season. For the Ravens, it's been, giving up big leads and not being able to get back on them. And for the Bengals, it's just been kind of a tale of two game stretches. Their offensive line looked horrible in the first two games, and then it's been really stepping up in the last two games. You can argue against inferior opponents and the Jets and the Dolphins, but I think in this game the biggest matchup is going to be this Ravens secondary against these Bengals wideouts. And as we saw last year, these Bengals wideouts had field days against the Ravens. But I think the Ravens, we've all been disparaging their defense as one of the worst, but the Ravens are actually second in the NFL and plus-minus turnover ratio in the entire league at +5, and turnovers given up to turnovers lost. Or turnovers taken to turnovers lost. So I think this defense they just play really, really aggressive. And we know Joe Burrow, he likes to take risks. He likes to throw the ball, let it air out. And I think in this game, in Baltimore, I think with Lamar Jackson playing, he's going to need to take these risks, put the ball into windows that he's maybe not too comfortable with. And I think he's going to make a lot of mistakes in this game, as much as it pains me to say. So I think the Ravens defense can get the upper hand in this matchup. I do think it'll be a high-scoring game between the two teams, but I think Lamar Jackson is going to do just enough on the other side of the ball to give the Ravens the edge.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you, Lewis. I think we've done a lot of agreeing in this podcast, much to your chagrin. But I think the winner of this game is going to be the first team to 35 points, in my opinion. And I like Lamar to do that. Mark Andrews, he's stellar. He didn't put on the, signature performance that we expected him last week, but look for him to do that. And then Devin Duvernay, some stats have come out about him and his just efficiency in running routes. You can go look him up on ESPN Plus. He's just been absolutely stellar this season. So him and Rashad Bateman, I think they also, a little bit underlooked in this game against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
As they should be. I mean,
well, we'll see after this game, Lewis. I know it was an emotional loss for the Ravens last week. We saw Marcus Peters was getting mad at John Harbaugh, and we expected this Ravens defense to give up a lot of air yards to to Josh Allen last week, but they hunkered down, only giving up 23 points to that high-powered offense. And so I think this is going to be a high-scoring game, Lewis, but I like the Ravens just like you. Give me the Ravens 35 to 32. They finally bring out Justin Tucker and, kick a game-winning field goal instead of going for it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Ravens in a high-scoring game. I just think, for me, when I went through this week, I was picking with my head over my heart. This is definitely a game my heart would have, leaned towards. But I had these two teams splitting both their matchups, and it's only appropriate to give the Ravens the win at home. So I like the Ravens in this one, 34 to Bengals 31. Justin Tucker sends them home. And that'll lead us off to our final game of the weekend. We have the Monday Night Football game. The Las Vegas Raiders heading to the Chiefs. Both teams coming off impressive wins. Impressive for the Raiders because they had their first one of the season. And the Chiefs, who just looked dominant against Tampa last week. Laraib, after a huge win against a tough opponent, kind of a built-up revenge game for the Chiefs last week, do you think there's a little bit of a letdown coming into this Monday night game?
Oh, definitely not, Lewis. We know how Andy Reid is at home, especially on prime time against a divisional opponent. We know how Patrick Mahomes just dominates his own division. And so, the Raiders, they had to win that game last week. That was a must-win game for them, an emotional win for them, finally catching their first win in the season. But now you're going into the Lions' den to play Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, Lewis, and I just don't think they stand a chance at all.
I agree with you. I think this Chiefs offense is just way too potent. And this Raiders team that honestly Patrick Mahomes has dominated, only losing one game. And that was a crazy walk-off field goal type game for the Raiders 2 years ago. So I think the Chiefs, renowned focus. If this game was Sunday at noon, maybe I would have some reservations of picking the Chiefs. But Monday night, an extra day to prepare. I think they're going to be locked in, laser focused on beating this Raiders team, especially at home, where they've had so much success against all their divisional opponents. So give me the Chiefs in this one. I'm going to take the Chiefs 36 to Raiders 23.
And I'm going to take the Chiefs, Lewis, 33 to 24.
All right. And that's going to wrap up our picks for the week. But before we sign off, we're going to give you our upsets, locks, and best bets of the week. So, Laraib, you want to start us off with your upset of the week?
Of course, Lewis, my upset of the week has to be my Seattle Seahawks going against New Orleans Saints. I think whoever's at quarterback, they're going to have to do a lot to keep up with Geno Smith and Tyler Lockett and all them boys coming up from the Pacific Northwest. So I'm hoping to get a game ball from somebody after the end of this game, Lewis. But I like the Seahawks in this one.
I mean, sticking with your guns again. Let's see how it works. My upset of the week is Dallas over the Rams. Like we talked about, just the mismatch of their defensive front against the Rams' offensive front, I think is going to be apparent in this one. The Rams' offense has been struggling, and I think this is a bad defense to go up against with your struggling. So I like the Cowboys to win a home game on the road as my upset. And then my lock, it was tough to find a lock this week to fit in our parameters. Obviously, it'd be easy to pick the Packers, the Buccaneers, or the Vikings. But you know what? I needed to believe in a team that needs to get quality wins on their schedule, and that is the Los Angeles Chargers. Even on the road, I just think the quarterback mismatch in this one, Jacoby Brissett versus Justin Herbert, this game does scare me a bit. I will admit it's hard to call this a lock, but I think in this particular matchup, Justin Herbert gets it done. Give me the Chargers as my lock.
All right, Lewis, good one. And then for my lock, I have to take the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a good opportunity. They're on the road, so they're only -5. I'm a little scared in this one, Lewis, because when you're 4-0, you're flying high, you feel like nothing can take you down, and all of a sudden you go into one of these road games and wham, you just get whacked against one of these lesser opponents. But I think the Eagles, one of the better defenses in the league and one of the better offenses in the league. I just don't think the Cardinals will be able to keep up. So give me the Eagles as my lock of the week.
Yeah, and now we have our best bets of the week. For me, it's just a huge talent mismatch. It's most importantly a coaching mismatch. I have the Niners -6.5 to cover the spread. I just think even on the road, this is just a much more talented team. They have matchup advantages all across the board. Even coming off a short week, this game should be a handily 49ers win.
All right, and for my best bet of the week, these are all straight locks. So what you're going to do, you're going to parlay Vikings money line against the Bears, I think that's an absolute lock.
Lock.
Buccaneer against the Falcons. That's also another just absolute lock. And the
Absolute.
Packers going to London to play the Giants. I think that's just another lock game. So you parlay those three money lines together, you have a plus 110 odds. I think those are great.
I like him a lot, Laraib. And so that is going to do it for this week's episode. Make sure, like always, check us out on Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you can get us streaming. We are there. So to wrap up this segment, anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah, if you guys want to catch out our Thursday night preview, it's going to be at the end of our Tuesday pod. So if you want to see what we think for the Colts Broncos game, just go ahead and check us out over there.
And just to add on to that real quick, as we find out now that Jonathan Taylor is not playing, so our bets look that much juicier. But that is going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you got this far, leave a like, subscribe, and support us. And that'll do it.
Peace.